Welcome to Criminalish, a true crime podcast where two best friends trade stories ranging from the wild and wacky to the downright messed up. Hey everyone, and welcome to the first live from your Criminalish Podcast host. I'm Dev.
And I'm Cam.
And, this is our first live. It's a fun time. We're just going to see how this goes. We do want to make this like a pretty regular, of course. We do want to make this a pretty regular occurrence. But we're just gonna, see what happens with this whole live streaming thing. I think it's gonna be fun. So, as you can see from our thumbnail, we are going to be talking about 8 passengers today. And Cam doesn't really know anything about 8 passengers, I don't think. Yeah, and so I'm going to be kind of filling her in, but there's actually a lot on this case that I'm not very caught up on. So I'm also like trying to figure out what all has happened. I've heard a bunch of things from a bunch of different sources, and I just kind of want to focus on what we know and just kind of get through that. So we're going to be watching some good old Law and Crime Network to kind of get us caught up on things. I like Law and Crime. I like the way they deliver information. And so that is going to be like our videos of choice to kind of get through and react to and like learn what's really going on with this situation. If you hear a very loud like popping noise, that is my dog sitting under my desk playing with his toy. I'll see how bad it sounds in this live stream, and if it sounds really bad, then I won't let him have it next time, and if it doesn't sound that bad, then he'll be okay. So, you ready to get into these videos, friend?
Sure am.
Alrighty, but as always, because that's what we like to do here on the Criminalish Podcast, what are you drinking tonight, friend?
I am drinking H2O, plain old water. Gotta stay hydrated.
Good, gotta stay hydrated. I, on the other hand, am not staying hydrated, and I am again drinking the Apothic red wine. I am obsessed. I might have a problem. No, I don't. I am adult. I am 25 years old. I can drink as much as I like. So, so we're gonna go ahead and get into. We're gonna go ahead and get into the stream here, guys, and we'll see we'll see how this goes. Sorry guys, hold on. I'm trying to get the There we go. Okay, so this is the playlist from YouTube that we're going to be pulling from, and this is everything they have on Ruby Frankie and Jody Hildebrandt. Cam, just to give you a little bit of background, I guess, the background that I know anyways, is that Ruby Frankie is a mother of 6 children, and she has a husband named Kevin. Thus, the 8 passengers are her husband, and their 6 children. She was originally a YouTuber who had millions of subscribers, and she did family vlog style content. And people really gravitated toward her content. They really liked it, but people always noticed that there was something a little off about the way that she raised her kids. And there were times where she's been accused of abusing her kids. She's been accused of being a very unfair, authoritative parent. And for example, she took her son's bedroom away for like 7 or 8 months for a prank that he pulled on his little brother. And so he was sleeping on a beanbag in like random rooms in their house for like 8 months because he played a prank on his brother. That's one thing. And the biggest thing, which big trigger warning with this, because I understand that that's really upsetting for a lot of people, is when her kids would do something that she deemed bad, she would tell them that they, quote, lost the privilege to eat. And so she would not, so she wouldn't give them dinner. She would not feed them. She has taken Christmas away from her two youngest children. So those are just a couple of things that like the public were like, how are you doing this to your kids? Like, that is wild that you're doing that to your kids. And it has been, I guess alleged is the proper word because nothing has been found in a court of law yet, but it has been alleged that one of her children has escaped from a home where he was essentially being held hostage and being abused by his mother, Ruby Frankie, and her business partner, Jody Hildebrandt. Now, Jody is a licensed therapist who, in my opinion, is the worst kind of therapist, which is a therapist who doesn't actually believe in therapy, a therapist who doesn't actually believe that, you know, that like it's not about what you say to her in your session. It's about what she feels and what God says to her when she goes to sleep. So she's one of those people who's like, everybody, really every man has a sex addiction, and, you know, she alienates mostly men from their families. Like, a lot of people have come forward and said some very horrific things about her therapy, and especially this group that she is the head of with Ruby called Connections. And Connections is supposed to be, I'm going to switch us back to the other screen because we're just talking here and it just feels better to sit there and talk. So essentially, the kids are, Jody is a raging homophobic. She's doesn't, in my opinion, actually believe in therapy. She believes in, I guess, God is going to fix him, you know? And she is also accused of harboring and abusing these children because they were found in her house. So where Ruby was also living at the time, she was not living with her husband, despite them, on paper anyway, still being married. So that's a kind of a synopsis and background of everything that I know. There's a lot with this case that's just weird. There's a lot that I'm like, where I don't know everything that happened with like the actual what has been alleged of the abuse. I do know that Jody and Ruby have both been arrested and they are currently in jail without bond, but I don't know like everything that happened with that. And they did have a hearing earlier this week that I'm hoping to see in these videos that we watched tonight, because I want to know how that hearing went, because I did hear that there's some bombshell allegations in that hearing. So there's your plot synopsis, Cam.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot. How old is the oldest?
Their oldest child, I believe, is 20. I think she's 20 or 21, one or the other. And their youngest child, I believe, is somewhere between like 9 or 11. I don't know that for certain, but they're young. Like they're little kids. You know, I know they're younger than 12. I know they're younger than 12. So we're going to get into this video, which the first one we're going to watch here is called The Rise and Fall of YouTube Mom Ruby Franke, The Story So Far. Again, this comes from the Law and Crime Network, and I felt like they would do a good job of just explaining, you know, what we have going on here and what is alleged on every front. So I like Law and Crime. Hopefully, Cam, you also like Law and Crime, and they can give us an explanation of what we got going on here, because it's a 25-minute video. So let's see.
Honestly, my biggest fear ever since I started vlogging was, but what if I wake up
can't hear the
and my
sound coming from the
children
video.
are...
Oh, you can't? Yeah, Cam, I'm not sure, because I share it like always. Sharing it like always, and it's usually working. It should be working.
You see,
We appreciate y'all being patient during our technical difficulties.
okay, try one more time.
Okay.
It was a new issue.
I was like,
The viewers are probably thinking we're crazy. They're like, I can hear it fine. When I was messing around in Discord earlier,
yeah,
the streamer mode thing kept coming up, and I accidentally disabled it, I think, when I was clicking around. And I was like, I hope that isn't important.
We're only streaming tonight. The streamer mode can't be important.
Well, I'd never used it, and I was like, okay, Dev is streaming, but I'm not streaming, so
everything will be fine.
If y'all can't tell, I do not get on YouTube, and this is my first time ever doing any type of live event, so we can continue.
That's why, baby, we're trial and erroring over here. Welcome to the Criminalish Podcast. Welcome to the Criminalish live stream. Welcome Atreus to the screen, everybody. He's big mad right now. Okay. All right, let's get into it.
Honestly, my biggest fear ever since I started vlogging was, but what if I wake up and my children are just staring at a wall all day and there's nothing to film? That is legitimately my biggest fear.
A woman who rose to fame on YouTube with her videos on parenting, childcare, and marriage is charged with 6 counts of felony child abuse. But how did we get here? What led to a young boy climbing out of a window and rushing to a neighbor for help? We're digging into the Ruby Franke case and her timeline from mom to vlogger to criminal defendant. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Well, her name is everywhere.
Jesse, I love you. Side note. But I before we even get into this, I want to go ahead and put out this bias, right? I don't like family vloggers. I don't like family vlogging channels. I feel like it is a slippery slope when you make your children content and you don't allow your kids to be kids. Especially because I'm also one of those people who watches a lot of documentaries, right? So to listen to the kids who are now adults talk about how everything in their life was on a camera, and I knew people personally whose moms had a camera in their face like all the time, and I just don't think it's good for kids long term. Like, I really just don't. And I feel like you just, you know, start having, like, you start looking at your kids as like, oh, these are my little profit margins, instead of like, oh, these are my children, which I love and hold dear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like monetizing your children pretty early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, Ruby Franke. And even if you've never seen any of her videos, you know who I'm talking about. It is all over the news. It's all over social media. We here at Sidebar, we have been heavily focused in trying to delve into this highly disturbing case as well. Now, Franke is, of course, the 41-year-old YouTuber mom who is now charged alongside her business partner, Jody Hildebrandt, with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse with respect to 2 of her young children. I'm talking about a case where police discovered Franke's emaciated children, her 10-year-old daughter, her 12-year-old son. They were found in Hildebrandt's residence. And in fact, the boy had suffered deep lacerations. There was even evidence that he had been tied up. We're going to get to all that. But we should actually start from the beginning in order to understand how we got here. So this is a full timeline of what we know so far in the Ruby Franke case. Let's start with the family. So Ruby Griffiths met Kevin Franke. They got married, and they had their first child back in 2003. Kevin had graduated from Utah State University for undergrad and then got his graduate degree from Brigham Young University in civil engineering. He went on to teach engineering at BYU.
Oh, this reminds me of something else that is important that I forgot. This family is Mormon, like hardcore Mormon. It's not a secret, or, you know, a part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, whatever makes y'all feel comfortable, right? But yeah, they are very religious, and they're specifically Mormon or members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Just for reference. I'm sure they'll get into that, but that's something else I found interesting about this case, is they're seemingly so religious.
You as an associate professor. Kevin and Ruby are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Of course, there it goes.
They ended up having 6 children together. Sherry, Chad.
Yeah, when he said
Abby,
Brigham Young, I
Julie,
figured.
Russell, and
Yeah,
Eve.
yeah.
The family lived in Ivins, Utah. It's about 4 hours away from Salt Lake City. But then you fast forward to 2015, and Ruby and Kevin started a channel on YouTube called 8 Passengers. And the videos were all about their family and parenting and marriage and homeschooling.
I've never once forgotten to vlog. Like, it's like forgetting to eat or forgetting to breathe.
It's so interesting you talk about not vlogging is like forgetting to eat when you actively deny your children meals when they upset you. That's very interesting. Like,
For me, like picking up the camera and vlogging, it's like I would never forget to do that.
Their channel became so popular, it eventually boasted more than 2 million subscribers.
I just felt the spirit tell me everything's going to work out okay. And then I had the thought, you need to share this too on your video. You need to let your viewers know that everything's going to be okay for them too.
All right, we want to thank Morgan & Morgan, the largest injury law firm in America, for sponsoring this video. Now, I know what you're thinking, right? Lloyd, they have... Well,
I'm thinking I'm skipping your ad. That's what I'm
Check
thinking.
apple.com/law.
Yeah, because they're
Some
not
of the
paying
channel's
us.
videos just show...
Right. We don't, you know, but if anybody would like to sponsor the Criminalish Podcast, our email is criminalishpodcast@gmail.com. Serious inquiries only, please.
The day-to-day life of the family, from after-school sports
How many of you out there play tennis?
to cooking.
Is because if I decide I wanted a roast at the last minute, pork is really quick and easy. It does not take all day. It takes like about 30 minutes.
To haircuts.
Dad, is there anything wrong with the back of my hair?
Wrong?
Yeah,
No? That's the way yours?
it's horrible.
But did not come without its share of criticism and controversy. You see, Frankie's videos also addressed some sensitive and darker topics.
One thing that I think is very, very harmful is inappropriate memes. There are some hilarious memes out there, but there are also some memes that are just downright nasty. And I think it's important that we know what our kids are looking at on their Instagram feeds.
However, it was her parenting style that really became problematic for many. It was a level of discipline that concerned viewers. For example, in one video, Frankie admits that her youngest daughter, then 6-year-old Eve, forgot to pack a lunch for school.
I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch. And it would ease her discomfort if I came to the school with lunch. But I responded and just said, Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry.
6 years old.
That being
In
the
another
natural
video,
outcome is
Frankie
crazy.
said, quote, "My kids are..."
Because children need nutrients, one, to survive, but also like to pay attention in class. Like if she's not hungry, she's probably going to be super tired because her body doesn't have energy. She's not going to be able to focus. And the fact that that was the natural punishment for that, and not it being like, okay, well, all you get for lunch then is like a turkey sandwich and an apple. Like you're still getting your nutrients, but maybe you don't get the fruit snacks you wanted. Like the fact that the punishment was no food is wild.
Right. And especially it's no food when you were like, well, she's responsible for packing her own lunch. She's clearly old enough to pack her own lunch. And it's like, she's 6. And
Right.
not only is she going to have a hard time, like, just paying attention, but, like, God forbid if the poor thing has ADHD or she's neurodivergent at all, she's not going to be able to do anything. Like, when I'm hungry as an adult, I can't function. I couldn't imagine being hungry as a 6-year-old and then being expected to pay attention in 1st grade. Like, that's
Right.
wild.
And hell, I mean, I packed my lunch for work and will still forget it right there in the fridge. It's happened multiple times.
Right. That part. I did that today, actually. Oh, hold on one second. My computer is dead.
Are literally starving. I hesitate to say this because it's going to sound like a mean barbarian, but I told the kids I'm not even going to let you eat breakfast until you get your chores done, which is all so chilling considering the allegations of starving her children. But the discipline would also consist of other acts too, like her and Kevin not giving their 2 youngest children gifts on Christmas one year because they said they were selfish. Now, the 8 Passengers channel, it was removed by YouTube, we believe earlier this year. Reporting indicates that the family...
That's one thing that they have incorrect. It's been allegedly that they took the channel down themselves and YouTube did not take it down. So that's one thing that has been pretty much confirmed by everybody else, but they took the channel down themselves. And it's like not even like we're just going to private everything and try to hide it. They deleted their entire YouTube channel. So like all the videos that we're getting, all these references are like re-uploads of other people who saw the behavior and was concerned about like what they were doing.
Got it.
had also been posting less content over time. We don't know exactly why all this happened. It could be connected to the criticism of some about the punishments that this family doled out to the kids. and talked about in their videos, multiple accounts online have posted videos over the past few years pointing out these concerning moments that were all caught on camera.
What do you do when you're disciplining your kids and they make you laugh? Mom. Oh, it's frustrating. All of my kids have done it. Chad does it too.
I do not, because I never get disciplined.
And Ruby Franke herself would respond to that criticism.
Online who hate me, who would like to cancel me, who would like to see me either burn in hell, as I have told, or disappear off the face of the earth. And I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, Franke said in an interview with
That's a choice of words.
Media last year, quote, "I was slapped upside the face with shock that people didn't like responsibility. I went overnight nearly from being this loved YouTube mom to being called a neglectful, abusive mom. I was shocked." Well, now Franke is in a Utah jail cell, accused of abusing her children alongside her business partner, Jody Hildebrand. And that's the moment I want to take right now. I want to take a moment to talk a little bit more about Jody's backstory. So according to the Utah Division of Professional Licensing, Jody Hildebrand is a clinical mental health counselor. She started her own YouTube channel known as Connections.
So many of us that are parents, it's like, I don't want to have to track them down. I don't want to have to just, like take everything away from them. And it's like, you're not taking things away from them. What you're doing is you've handed them things that they're not managing. And so it's your job to make sure that the first thing they manage is themselves. Like, they understand how to manage themselves. They know how to be responsible for themselves. They know how to not blame. They know how to get curious, which means humble. They know how to ask questions. They know how to say, that doesn't feel right. Can you help me understand? They know how to do all that. And when you give them activities or you give them opportunities that they engage in where they can't manage themselves, they're only going to become more and more unmanageable inside of these activities.
And at some point, Ruby Franke joined Connections. We also believe that Kevin might have been in some of those videos. In fact, the website lists Ruby Franke as a certified mental fitness trainer. And Franke, as I said, appeared alongside Hildebrand in these videos.
Let's also talk about the fact that a certified fitness mental whatever trainer she is, whatever that is, isn't a real title, and she's not certified to do anything. So,
right. She's certified by the company to be called a mental fitness trainer.
Exactly.
I have been full-time. You wonder where I've been on my vlogs? You wonder why I left YouTube? It's to save my kids. No amount of money. I'm telling you, I was making millions. And I left it because my kids were being hurt. With entitlement, they were being hurt. With people's advice, and they didn't have a mother up the front saying, I don't care what the world's opinion is. This is the truth, and this is where I stand.
Okay, but now fast forward to last month, when according to court documents and a 911 phone call, Franke's 12-year-old son, RF, who we know to be Russell, climbed out of a window at the home of Hildebrand. He ran to a neighbor and asked him to call the police.
That looks like a military bunker.
911 the address.
Oh, absolutely it does. Like, when they first showed the house, I thought that I had never actually seen the house. I was like, this looks like some, last days of our lives. Like, I'm gonna go in there and I'm never coming out because the apocalypse is outside. That's how this looks. That doesn't look like somebody's home. Like, that's crazy.
Rest of your emergency. Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. We know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs. He's hungry and he's thirsty. And he asked us to call the police. So he's very afraid. This kid has obviously been, I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds. We need the cops here as soon as possible.
Yeah, it appeared
He
that
didn't even
Russell
want to
had been
say
bound
that.
with duct tape,
Yeah.
that he was severely malnourished. He was asking for food and water. First responders, they come. They find his sister, EF, who we know to be Eve, 10 years old, inside of the home in a very similar state. Both were taken to a hospital. Ruby Franke, Jody Hildebrandt, they were both arrested. Now, I also want to tell you that.
And I want to tell you something that like broke my heart about this case, because I've been watching a bunch of different sources talk about it, but I watched Natalie Lawyer Chick and Dr. Barry do a talk about this case. And apparently one of the things they had talked about is the neighbors after the fact said that they were happy that this is like really difficult for me to say, but like they were saying that they were surprised, but yet, relieved, I guess is the best word to say it. But they were relieved that the children weren't leaving the house in body bags.
Oh, wow.
Because that's how, at least reportedly, that's how bad things were from the outside. That's how bad everybody felt like things were. That they were surprised that the children left, even though they were, they were starving and they had all these injuries. They were at least alive, which is a lot more than what the neighbors thought was going to happen. And that's really, really effed up. So, ugh.
The police noted as well that Ruby Franke was seen on a YouTube video filmed in Jody Hildebrandt's house. It was posted 2 days before the kids were discovered. And the police said, quote, "This observation points to Franke being in the home and having knowledge of the abuse." That's why each is charged with either inflicting the injuries themselves on these kids or causing or permitting another to inflict the injuries. So it's going to be hard to argue that Ruby Franke didn't know what was happening or didn't endorse it. And prosecutors are going to have quite the latitude to argue in front of a jury that these injuries constitute child abuse because under the various charges, it is abuse if the injuries result in a form of torture or malnourishment, even severe emotional harm. These are serious crimes. In fact, the maximum is 15 years in prison on each respective charge. Let's go back to the early warning signs of trouble. Well, back in 2020, Child Protective Services went to the Franke home to investigate claims of abuse thanks to a change.org petition. This again seemed to be brought on by the viewers of her channel, again, people who were concerned with what they were seeing. But here's what may have prompted that. So then 15-year-old Chad, the Franke's oldest son, was sent from Utah to a camp in Arizona called Anasazi. It is a weeks-long wilderness camp for troubled teens. And when he got back, he played apparently some pranks on his younger brother, Russell, whom he shared a bedroom with. And take a listen to what Chad and Ruby Franke, his mom, had to say in a video that she posted, and eventually it was taken down.
I'm going to go ahead and say this too, because I don't think they're going to get into it. But also, the camp that he went to is equivalent to like, think Dr. Phil, the ranch, think like those camps that come in and snatch kids out of their beds in the middle, like snatch troubled teens out of their beds in the middle of the night, and then they make them go out and live in the middle of nowhere without basic necessities. And I was also watching another stream again with Natalie Lawyer Chick, and she was going over like the reviews of the camp, and people were saying things like, I was there with people who were heroin addicts and were like trying to stab me in my sleep. Like, other teens, other kids. And that like the camp counselors weren't actually counselors. They were basically our age, just taking these kids out in the middle of nowhere where they could drop dead. Like, it's I doubt they're going to get into that, but it's very messed up that they sent him, in my opinion, it's very messed up they sent him to this camp, because I don't know Chad, obviously, but I highly doubt he was anywhere near as, like, just because of how their parenting style to me says like they would fly off the handle about any little thing. he doesn't strike me as the kind of kid who needs to be reprimanded the same way that kids on heroin need to be reprimanded or need to have their life reorganized or whatever the hell y'all are doing to those kids, which in my humble opinion is abuse, but that's neither here nor there. So
yeah, and even kids on heroin don't need to be out in the wilderness without basic necessities. They need, therapy that's actually going to address the why behind their addiction and help them get clean in a way that reduces the likelihood that they'll use drugs again.
Exactly. It's like, it's something that's actually beneficial for the health of the child. Like, this is not that.
Right.
And like multiple reviews were like, oh, this is a waste of money. And it was like that same thing. It's like, I was afraid for my life. I was out in the middle. I lost 20 pounds while I was out in the woods for 6 weeks, like stuff like that. And it's crazy. Not to mention the fact that it's $30,000 for this like 12-week camp. $30,000. So you're telling me you have $30,000 to send your kids to the middle of nowhere without basic necessities, but you don't have $30,000 to put them in actual therapy? $30,000 to put them in what is that thing called? Where people go, yes, thank you, in a rehabilitation center, like something that's actually beneficial for the child. If you're going to spend 30 grand, like let's reassess this 30 grand.
But that would also require them to believe that the problem is stemming from something that's not necessarily the child's fault, and that the problem can be fixed by something other than just yelling at the child and telling them to do what you want.
Right. And of course, and why would I expect that from people who are just going to have their kids snatched up in the middle of the night and kidnapped?
Right.
Ugh, you're right. Ugh, Lordy.
In our house, when we take something away, it's because they have shown that they are not responsible enough to manage it. And so we don't just turn around and give it back as soon as they start acting good.
It has to be consistent.
It has to be consistent over a minimum of 6 months.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
You've been sleeping on a beanbag.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October. My room back like 2 weeks ago. Oh, I'll give you the reason why I lost my bedroom. I think so. I think this is the reason. At least this is the reason that's been in my head.
He's not even sure why he's been punished for the last 8 months. Like, let's talk about that.
I woke Russell up at 2 in the morning and told him that we're going to Disneyland and he has to pack. And he got up and made his bed all neatly and then packed all his clothes in a suitcase. And then he walked out the door and I'm like, Russell, he's like, what? And he's all happy. Has his sunglasses on. And I was like, we're not going to Disneyland. And he started crying and hitting me. And then he went back to bed in tears. And then...
So that was not the reason you lost your room, but that was...
Well, the other reason is because I pointed a BB gun at his face.
Pointed a BB gun at his face and hung him on the basketball.
Like, clearly you're not really teaching your children things if they think, like, one, they didn't learn the lesson. It's still funny to them. And two, like, if the lesson you want them to take from this is like be loving to your siblings, that's not working. Like, that's not those aren't the values you've instilled in your children, clearly.
Exactly. But even then, like, as somebody who has multiple siblings, and especially as somebody who has an older brother, like, realistically, the things that he's doing are not take my bedroom away for 8 months worthy. Like,
nothing is that worthy.
Exactly. Like, my brother has pulled a very similar prank on me about like the whole waking me up and telling me we're going on vacation and we're not going on vacation. Was I in my feelings about it? Yeah. Did my parents punish my brother for it? Yeah. But like, and then I also was like 8 and then I got over it 2 days later. So it's like, not like I'm sitting around here carrying this lifelong trauma because my brother pulled a prank and told me we were going to SeaWorld and we weren't. It's not the offense is not the offense is not equal to the punishment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's wild. And again, it's like, I think it's also ridiculous. Like, you have 6 kids, you're gonna really expect them to like not pull pranks on each other. I think he's also like 8 or so years older than his little brother. Like, there's a big gap there. So like, there's the high schooler is gonna pick on the elementary school little brother. Like, it's just part of the game.
Yeah,
right?
I think the pranks are understandable. I would say the more serious of what they just said was the BB gun. But even that's
cool.
that's a serious conversation about why, like what you did, why it's wrong, and how you need to remedy the situation. Also, ask the child, what would make you feel better?
Right.
What's the same do to make you feel better?
Exactly. And yeah, that's one that I'm like, yeah, that's serious, because that's like, that teeters over into just general gun safety, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that one is one where like, yeah, we're gonna have a real conversation, and we might be, taking away your cell phone for a couple of weeks, but being like, we live in, because remember earlier she was talking about how she makes millions. We live in this big house and I don't have a bedroom because I pulled a prank on my little brother. That's a choice. That's a choice.
Basically, Chad.
The day I got home too.
But also, it's so funny that she's sitting there trying to tell them that it's not funny when she was laughing earlier. Because she was also laughing at it. So it's like, so you can't even take this seriously either.
Right.
And yet you also are in your 40s and can't take it seriously. And you want them, the person who did it at 15, to take it seriously. Like,
right.
Come on. You're not even listening to your own advice.
Chad came home from Anasazi and
Russell was like, I want to try dunking the basketball, and I lifted him up on the rim. And left him there for a 3 minutes, and he was just hanging on there.
Do you think it's funny? Because
and then I walk out.
If you think it's funny, then that was 7 months ago. Maybe you need longer without a bedroom.
It was not funny.
Chad showed that he was not able to manage himself sharing a bedroom with Russell.
So when we moved, the bigger room in the basement was automatically his, and I didn't have a room, but we put one on hold for me.
So a lot of you are like, hey, that's not fair, because Chad got the lesser bedroom, and Russell got the bigger bedroom. Russell got the big bedroom, and Chad got the smaller bedroom, and Russell's bigger bedroom also had a bathroom. But what you guys didn't know was Chad didn't get any room. He didn't get anything. He was sleeping on the floor in the family room. It hurts me just as much as it hurts my kids.
Both
you
Chad
just
and
laughed. No, it doesn't.
Friends since they moved to a new home.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, and she could have left it at, okay, since you decided to pull that.
Don't feel safe or accepted in any.
Sorry, I thought I heard something in the background.
You're okay.
And in the same video, Ruby talked about.
I'm not even gonna tell you what it was. It was
you have to.
For some reason, it sounded like a knock. I thought it was tripping.
It did. I will tell you, the first time I heard it, because it's been a while since I watched one of these videos, I forgot how aggressive that swoop is. So it got me the first time too.
And I was like, who is knocking on beat like that? That is weird. That is strange.
Not knocking on beats. Nothing got the rhythm.
But yeah, I was gonna say she could have just left it at like, okay, since you decided to pull that prank, your little brother gets the big room and you get this regular sized room. And you have to share the bathroom or something like that. Like, to me, that would have been a fairer punishment.
I agree. And I think that's I think that's fair. And then also it's like, you're going to be gone. You're going to be out of the house in a couple of years anyway. So he should be getting the bigger bedroom anyway, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, so I think that would have been perfectly fair to be like, yep, he gets the big bedroom with his own bathroom and you now have a little bedroom and you have to share a bathroom with your sisters.
Right.
Tough. Dims the brakes.
Right.
Going away with her husband Kevin to a retreat, and while they're gone, the kids were only supposed to use their iPads for schoolwork, but Ruby learned that the youngest children had broken the rules. So because of that, Ruby apparently took away all the electronics from everyone for the rest of that summer. After she spoke with Chad and Abby about her views on punishment, she then brings Russell into the frame. And I just want you to watch his face as she's talking, because for me, it seems pretty evident how uncomfortable he is, because he's not only dealing with the fact that he's being disciplined, but this conversation is being recorded.
Okay, you guys, I need to go have a talk with Russell. The fact that he's not willing to sit with me and be humble and talk is a big demonstration to me that he has some distorted views and that he is in a lot of shame. Oh, there you are. I was just talking about you. Do you want to come sit with me and talk?
No, I don't.
I'm going to get down on your level. I've noticed that you've been hiding from me, and you are feeling a lot of embarrassment and shame. I don't know.
And how does this help?
Right.
And how does this help? How does this make him feel comfortable? Why did you do this to him?
Yeah, I think especially it being on camera is very obviously he's not comfortable with that.
I mean, and you know he's not, because you started with you've been very shy and very shameful. So let's go ahead and put your shyness and shameful on full display for our 2.5 million subscribers. Like, oh, Jesus Christ. This is why I hate family channels. This is why, because even if this was supposed to be like an intimate moment, maybe he is going through some things and he actually needed to talk those out. Put the damn camera down. Do not stick a camera in his face. He might actually be going through something, and he might need you to be his mom and not be a mommy vlogger for half a second.
You tell me what you're feeling. Mad?
Because I really won't get anything this summer. I won't be able to go anywhere. No, I don't have any friends. No iPads, no TV, nothing.
Okay, so I hear you. That sounds like a lot to be taken away. That sounds like it's going to be a miserable summer.
'Cause it is.
Can I tell you what I see? Would you be open to hearing what I have to say? I see that yes, the iPads will be taken because you weren't responsible. You were lying and being manipulative with them.
Yeah, but you did start it.
And Eve may have started it. That's very possible. And who's responsible for you being?
I've seen a couple of other. I'm sorry, I gotta say, I stopped this thing a lot because I keep getting things I want to say. I've seen a couple other videos where she does this, where I don't like, and maybe I'm a little triggered by this. Maybe that's what it is, right? But I don't like people accusing me of things that I'm not doing. So like, if he did lie and say that he was just using the iPad for whatever and he didn't, and that wasn't the case, right? Take away the iPad, fully get it. If you're going to lie to me about the use, you can't have it. Totally understand that. But then to say like, you're lying and you're being manipulative and like putting these, in my opinion, just really heavy things on him when he's like, I don't know how old he is in this video, but he's clearly a baby. He's a baby, right? It's just for you to be like, you're being manipulative, and you're a liar and a manipulator because you told me that you could, because I told you could only do your math homework on the iPad, and now you're playing Roblox. Like, I don't understand why we need to take it all the way there.
Right. He's just a child, and delayed gratification is not really something that children are great at.
Exactly. And again, that's why I say, like, I understand, like, and I understand the learning lesson of like, if you're going to lie to me about the things that I give you, then you don't get to have the things that I give you. I'm perfectly fine with that. But then he's already concerned that like he's done lost his TV. He done lost his ability to go anywhere for the summer. He's probably going to lose Christmas. He's thinking about all of that. Like, because he decided to play Roblox on the iPad. I don't know what he was actually doing on the iPad. I'm just going with Roblox because that's the first kid game that pops in my head, right? But so it's like he feels this stress because he knows that in his little head, in his little body, in his little mind, the world is over because I've lost everything for the rest of the year. Like, because I wanted to play with video games on the iPad. Like, it's just a lot. It's a lot for a kid to feel.
Disobedient around iPads.
You. So it's up to you. If you want to be miserable because you don't get TV or iPad, that is totally up to you. You get to choose boredom and you get to choose to be miserable. What I am seeing, though, is that you're upset with the outcome for being mischievous. And instead of being humble and accepting that there is an outcome for you behaving like that with the iPads, instead you're being selfish. And what I would like to see is that you be humble and say, yeah, you know, I own it.
In his head, his whole face said, his whole face wanted to cuss her out when she said that. You saw it?
His face has been wanted to cuss her out since she set him down.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Poor thing. No, but when he did I felt that one. I've done that one to my mama before. I've definitely done that one to my mama before. Oof, Lordy.
I was mischievous with the iPads. I was sneaking them. I can see where I've broken trust, and I don't want our relationship to be an untrusting relationship.
And once again, Frankie defends her.
Nothing breaks trust like having your parent hurt you, though.
That part. Because there's no bigger betrayal than when a parent hurts you.
Right.
But he's the manipulative one. You just posted all of this for everybody to see, but he's the manipulative one. Interesting. And you're about to defend your actions and claim that you're a good parent. So who's the manipulator? Hey, bud.
And your feedback. I think I understand where some people are coming from. They're like, oh, the parents don't give their kids beds. And I totally agree with that. I know there are lots of children out there whose parents are neglectful. We got accused of child abuse when we sent Chad to Anasazi. Guess what? The first thing that they did was take a bed away. They don't have beds. So Chad slept on the hard ground for months, and it's run by psychologists and therapists. And if
no, it's not. No, it's not. You're a liar. You're an absolute liar.
Now, it was videos like these that led viewers to be concerned. I mentioned this change.org petition that was set up. It received a lot of signatures. Well, then CPS, Child Protective Services, is called to visit the home. And social workers come to the Frankie home. They look around. They interview all the children. But the case was closed because there was not enough evidence of wrongdoing or crime being committed or abuse. Ruby Frankie explained in an interview with The Wrap, saying, quote, I remember that morning very well. These officers, they were two ladies, said there had been several complaints about child abuse and child neglect. Could they come in and spend some time? She goes on to say that they didn't find anything. And before leaving, according to her, these workers were supposedly so impressed with her and Kevin's parenting that Frankie said, quote, they both said they were going to go home and make some changes on how they were parenting. In fact, according to Kevin Frankie, when they walked in unannounced, Eve and Ruby were baking bread together and doing a puzzle. He went on to say that it was hardly the evidence of an abusive home. But then, in another incident, April 2022, a social worker from the Department of Child and Family Services, DCFS, contacted police saying that two children were running unsupervised by the family home. But when a police officer arrives, the kids weren't there. We also know that back on September 18th, 2022, the couple's daughter, Shari Frankie, called police. You see, Shari basically cut ties with her family after Ruby started working with Jody at Connections, and she herself was attending Brigham Young at the time. But Shari reported that her siblings had been left home alone for days, and she wanted to make sure that they had enough food. So police show up. The kids reportedly wouldn't answer the door, but police could see them inside. The police speak with the neighbors. In fact, according to an officer in a report, quote, everyone who came to the scene was very concerned about the children and them being left at home alone, expressed great concern about the two youngest children being homeschooled while the two older ones go to public school, mostly because it shows that they are home alone during the day by themselves and there isn't any way for them to contact emergency services if needed. Reporting indicates that law enforcement stopped by the house 4 more times between September 22nd and October 3rd, but it doesn't seem anything came from it. It's not clear if DCFS was involved in this at all. But when Frankie and Hildebrandt were arrested, Shari posted on her Instagram story a photo of the police with the caption, "Finally." A neighbor spoke to NBC News saying, quote, "I'm really angry because I spoke up. Other people spoke up. If people knew the amount of tears and time spent talking with law enforcement and CPS over the last year, I want people to understand that. And I want those kids to know that because I think they thought that they were abandoned." Well, now it seems that there is plenty of evidence that points to abuse behind the scenes of these popular videos. The children are now in the care of Child Protective Services as Ruby Frankie and Jody Hildebrandt await a bail hearing later this month. And in a bizarre twist, at Frankie's most recent court hearing, she claimed that one of her children molested 20 other children, including a sibling, cousins, neighbors. The judge apparently said that the child would need to be placed in a home with no other children. Now, interestingly, we interviewed Ben Shu, famously representing.
Okay. Okay. I had heard roughly about this, but I did not hear that version of it. And I think, because another thing that was Jody had said in her when they first got arrested was that the children don't need to be around any other children. Right? And I feel like that statement, and I didn't realize, I also didn't know that the judge actually did separate the child, whichever one they accused. I don't know which one clearly. Whichever one they accused, they separated that child from other children. But is it bad that I think that this is a way for Jody to still abuse her child behind bars?
I mean, I can definitely see that. I think it's something we have to keep in mind as we're hearing the news. While it's a possibility that what she's saying is true, it's also a very real possibility that this is her way of continuing to exact her control over her children.
Yeah, and that's what I think, because it feels like if that's not true, the only reason you would say that is to keep your child away from other children and thus continue to hold them hostage and restrict who they are around, like you were physically doing when you were holding them captive. And that's why I just feel like I feel like this was her way to try to abuse her child behind bars and try to still exert control over the situation, though she didn't have any.
Johnny Depp in his civil abuse case. And here was his take on how that statement could hurt Ruby Frankie.
I think it's tremendously detrimental to her case. First of all, I mean, she should have, if any of this were true, she should have reported it at the time rather than waiting to be arrested and arraigned.
As for Kevin Frankie, who has not been criminally charged, according to his attorney, Kevin
which he should be,
that he denies any knowledge of abuse and that he has been living separately from Ruby for the last 13 months. I actually had the opportunity to interview Kevin's attorney, Randy Kester, who not only indicated that Ruby called Kevin before she was arrested, asking him to come take care of the kids, but that he is the victim.
He's working hard to do what he can to restore his reputation after it's been destroyed and damaged, and he's getting raked over the coals by all of this, when in fact he himself was to some degree a victim of these psychological and mental manipulations that were perpetrated against him and his family by Jody. He's just trying to restore some normalcy in his life and make sure that he can, as was his goal all along, to keep this family together and make sure that they thrive and that they recover from this.
Ain't no keeping the family together. Ain't no keeping the family together. At least in my opinion, because because to me, keeping the family together sounds like you want Ruby back in the kids' lives.
Well, maybe he means his children being together since they're with CPS now.
Okay.
Like that's how I didn't perceive it as Ruby being part of it. I perceived it as like getting all the children back and in the same house. But I agree, like we should still be side-eyeing him because I can't see how he didn't know. I understand they were separated, but you also knew Jody and you knew the type of person she was and you knew that she was around your children. So yeah, I definitely need to find out more about how much he knew and how involved he was before I'm ready to write him off.
Yeah. I mean, but like I guess like I'm a little ready to write him off because of like I look at it from a perspective of
I meant
one, I
write him
believe...
off as innocent.
Oh, got you. I thought you meant like write him off as like completely guilty. But like I don't believe he didn't know. I don't believe he didn't know at all. And I think it's so interesting that his lawyer says that like he too is a victim, you know, and he was under all this like manipulation is just gonna be the word of the hour apparently. But he was there when he sent his kid to that survival camp. He was there when they took the kid's bedroom away from all those months. He's aware of the fact that Jody withholds food from his children when they misbehave because he's on camera when she's doing it. Like, so you know the things that Ruby does to your children. You know the things because you were part of it. You allowed those things to go down. So in my head and in my opinion, if you allow somebody to abuse your children, even if you are not the abuser, you are just as guilty as the person who did the direct, let's call it direct abuse. If you allowed it to happen, especially as like, because we were talking about like how detrimental it is when a parent betrays a child. The ultimate betrayal is a parent allowing another parent to abuse you. Like, I don't buy him at all. I'm not saying he was not a victim. I'm not saying that at all. He very much could be a victim. But you, as a father, should have taken care of your kids. And that's where I'm like, side-eyeing him. I'm side-eyeing him like hell.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't know that he knew that Jody was also withholding food, or there was a video where he was on video with Jody with her withholding food.
Oh, it's his wife. The wife is Ruby. Jody
is
you had
said, okay. I think you just mixed them up.
Okay. Yeah. But my bad. His wife is Ruby. He's on video with Ruby when she's withholding food from her children.
Got it. And I think maybe like trying to see the other side of this, not necessarily playing devil's advocate, because devil don't need no advocate, but maybe like in his mind that's discipline, but learning that his children had like lacerations and were being tied up, he was like, oh, that's not discipline to me. Like that's abuse, even though to me, like withholding food, taking away a child's whole bedroom, sending them to a, like clearly somebody who's okay with sending their child to a camp like that, their definition of abuse is wildly different from my definition. Right. And so seeing the other side of this, I'm like, okay, maybe I also don't know how long they've been separated, how far away he was from his children, but maybe in some world he didn't know that two of his children were being held in what seems like a torture house.
Right.
Which I agree. Like it is you've been neglectful in your duties as a father.
Right.
If you knew that little, because I think there was another case where there were these two children whose mom had just like left them in a house with like no food, and the dad was sending Uber Eats to the house. Like the dad was in California and the children were in like Texas or somewhere in the South. And the dad was sending like Uber Eats to the children, but didn't know that the mom was not there. I guess he just thought maybe the mom can't pay for dinner and they're asking me for Uber Eats. But I think it was like multiple months that the older daughter, who I think was only 13 to 15 maybe, was taking care of her and her little brother and surviving off of the little food they had in the house and what their dad sent them. And while like I definitely think hindsight is 2020 in that situation, I also think like there was more that he could have done to, make sure, hey, like send an Uber Eats. Does your mom not have money for food? Like, is everything good over there? Like, I can send you groceries. Like, should I come and visit? Like, y'all. Yeah. So I feel like even if he knew nothing, he was still neglectful in his duties as a father by allowing his youngest children to be in that house for so long.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, of course, hindsight is 2020, but you got to ask more questions. Like, if, like, I'm even like, if I'm making this up, but even if my friend was suddenly like asking me for money for everything, or asking me to feed them every weekend or something, I'm gonna be like, hey, are you okay? Like, are things okay? Why is nobody asking questions? Even like, and I get like maybe you didn't the first time, the second time, third time, fourth time, but like when this is like a regular occurrence, where this has been like a thing for a while, you got to start asking questions, man, especially when it comes to your kids. Like, you just do. And of course, I say this as somebody who doesn't have any children. Clearly, I got a dog, right? But as somebody who was raised by very active parents, like, you got to ask questions and you got to figure out what's going on with your kids, you know?
Abuse.
Now, I am sure there is more to this story, and it will develop. We'll, of course, continue to follow all this for you and bring you every new detail. That's all we have for you here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.
Yeah, this story is wild.
Yeah. Because it's just, yeah, it's just crazy because, and these babies don't deserve it. These babies don't
Right.
deserve this. Like, I don't understand how you abuse a child and like you sleep at night. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah. I will say though, I do need to go at 9:30, and I see this as like 12 minutes. So probably best for me to just go ahead and drop off now. That way you don't have to pause the video mid-video.
Okay,
They just
sounds
say
good. I'm probably only gonna
salutations.
watch. Yeah, I'm probably only gonna watch like one more, which is like the top three. The name of the video is Top 3 Moments from Ruby Frankie's child custody hearing. I do want
Yeah.
to watch that. I do at least want to see what's going on with that. And then, I'll wrap up here. But thanks for being on, Cam, for our first live stream. Y'all don't know, but Cam like really had to get some work done and has to stay on top of things. So I appreciate her
Yeah.
making some time to come and hang out with us.
Yes, I am about to honestly like get ready for bed in like the next hour. But thank you for having me. Next time I'll remember to not disable my streamer mode and be more prepared.
Sounds good. It's the first one. We're gonna have some kinks. We're gonna work it out though. We're gonna figure it out for sure.
All
All right,
right.
Moo.
Bye,
I love you.
y'all.
I'll talk to you later.
Love you too, girl. Bye.
And then there was one. So Cam has dipped out for the night, and I'm gonna just watch this last video, and then I'm also gonna go ahead and call it a night. So let's go ahead and watch our second video here.
Anytime you go into battle, you need to know the enemy.
Ruby Franke, the Utah YouTuber, back in court for a hearing over custody of her minor children. We talk with a reporter who was in court about the top 3 revelations from that hearing. Welcome to Law and Crime Sidebar Podcast. I'm Anjanette Levy. Ruby Franke was expected in court Monday for a hearing where she planned to ask a judge to release her on bail. That hearing was continued because her lawyer said there's simply too much information to review in the case. Franke and her business partner, Jody Hildebrandt, remain in jail held without bail on felony child abuse charges involving Franke's children. Another hearing was held to discuss custody of Franke's minor children. Her husband, Kevin, wants his children back. They are in state custody. The Franke's oldest daughter, Sherry, was also in court. Joining me to discuss the very latest on Ruby Franke's children is somebody who's covering this case, and she's been on Sidebar with us before. Her name is Amanda Gilbert. She's a reporter at KUTV in Salt Lake City. Amanda, welcome back to Sidebar.
Thank you for having me back.
Thanks for coming back. 6 children. There are.
Okay, I'm not trying to make a joke here. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be insensitive. But for some reason, I did not expect her to be sitting in her car when she went on this interview, and that kind of threw me off. So that's why I was laughing. I know I was laughing a little minute ago. It's because she's sitting in her car, and I just thought that was funny because it reminds me of those Facebook dads that are sitting in their car with their phone and doing whatever talk they're doing that day. But no, I just thought that was funny. I thought that was funny.
There are 6 children involved in this case, and Kevin Franke, Ruby Franke's husband, was in court today with his lawyer. So bring us up to speed on the very latest. What happened in court?
Yes, and Ruby Franke was there as well, but she attended virtually. So today was a child welfare hearing in Provo, Utah, which is about 5 hours away from the jail that Ruby Franke is in. And the judge asked that today focus on one, scheduling, 2, the discussion of whether or not this child welfare case be closed to the public or not. So those were the 2 key things we heard about. The child welfare hearing started at 8:30 this morning.
So what happened with regard to, first of all, keeping the hearing open or closing it to the public? You had told me before we started that the attorney for the children wants the hearing closed, but the judge may not be willing to do that.
Yes. So cameras were not allowed in the courtroom for this. It's a juvenile court. And most of what we did hear, though I was inside, is the children's attorney spoke about how this case has not been adjudicated yet. It's, she said, quote, being tried on the royal stage already. She talked about how this child welfare case specifically involves a lot of sensitive materials related to children. So for that reason, she believes this case should be closed to the public, which would mean essentially none of us would be allowed inside. I was allowed inside today. We weren't allowed to bring in cameras, but I could at least attend and listen. That would not be allowed if this case is closed.
Which I kind of agree with. I get why people want to watch. I get why people want to come in for sure. But I do feel like when you're dealing with kids, when you're dealing with things that are really sensitive like this, it's just none of our business to know what's affecting the kids. You know what I mean? Versus, it'd be different if it was when Jody goes to trial, when Ruby goes to trial. Yeah, I want to sit in there. I want cameras in the courtroom, the whole 9 yards. But if we're dealing with the custody of the children, and the children are going to be there and they're going to be present, I'm definitely team lock out the public. I'm definitely team lock out the public. The public does not need to know what the children are saying. But that could just be me. If you think otherwise, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So leave a comment down below.
And then the judge spoke about how she is aware of the large media interest. She says transparency is important to the courthouse. So the judge said today she would like to continue to look into this discussion and view angles from all sides. Another key thing to note is Ruby Frankie's eldest daughter, Sherry Frankie, was in attendance today, and the judge asked Sherry to please either file a motion related to this or share her opinion down the road, essentially, on whether or not to close this case to the public. Because if this case is closed, there's a chance that the eldest daughter, Sherry, would not be able to attend as well. So it comes down to, can Sherry get an exception? Does Sherry think more about if she can attend for her siblings or more about protecting the privacy of her siblings? So we did not hear from her today, but that was of note.
The work.
Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just somebody who takes in a lot of true crime. But they should give her an exception. She's the sister. She's, in a lot of ways directly responsible for calling 911, trying to get CPS, trying to protect her siblings. So if they don't let her sit in watch what's going on in their case, I think that's really messed up, especially because she has been actively trying to help her siblings for the last few years. It takes a lot. It takes a lot for a person to have to call the cops on their mother, even if you are estranged, even if you guys are not in a good place. It takes a lot for you to call the cops on your mom, and she did that. So she deserves to know what's going on with her siblings.
Week can be really stressful, and deciding what to eat can just add to it. HelloFresh can take the stress out of plant doors. Cook no problem. Thing like more. Try HelloFresh 50. She's an adult. Is America's #1 meal kits. Sherry is in college. She's an adult. So was she there in person, or did she also attend virtually?
She was there in person with her attorney.
Is she there
Good.
because obviously
Good.
these are her siblings and she has an interest in what is going to happen with them?
Yes. We did talk to her today. She said or her attorney said no comment. But that is what we would assume. The attorney for the other children was also there.
What did the attorney for Kevin Frankie say? Because obviously these children are not in Kevin Frankie's custody right now. They're in some type of protective custody, right?
Yes, they are. And DCFS was there today. We did speak with, for the first time, the dad, Kevin Frankie's attorney, Randy Kessler, afterward. He essentially said, quote, that they're focused on trying to heal the family. And he said, get the children back to living with a family member, because he said that's in their best interest. And he, of course, said that they're working towards getting the children back to live with the dad.
Bro, I can't get over how well that I can't get over how that does not sit well with me. Like, I don't trust that Kevin is this innocent person who just didn't know what was going on with his children and just neglected his duties as a father for the last 13 months. Like, I just don't believe that. Like, so you've neglected being a father for the last 13 months, and now, because things have gotten so bad, you're like, okay, it's time for me to be a father. I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it. I'm not behind it. I don't like it, bro. I don't like it at all. This is another thing that I would say, like, I want to hear other people's thoughts and opinions on, because I'm just like, I don't think he deserves to stay with those children. Or I guess that's the other way around. I guess I don't think he deserves his children living with him. Like, I don't know much about, I know they have other siblings. I know they have other family. I mean, maybe they need to go with a different family member. Their oldest sister is obviously an adult. Maybe they figure out something and they stay with her, or I don't know, man, but they need to, I don't know. I just don't feel good about them going with their dad. And I also don't trust that if Ruby manages to get out of jail, even if she is on bond or something, I also have no faith that Kevin will keep the children away from her or keep her away from the children. And that's really what stresses me out about the whole thing. Because I'm like, are you going to do whatever it takes to protect your kids? And that's going to have to be cutting all ties with their mother, at least for the time being, until we figure out what's going on in the court of law. Like, I think if you're not ready to take that step, then you're not ready to have those children. Again, that could just be me. I would love to hear opposing thoughts on this or just other thoughts on this, but yeah, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it at all.
Kevin Franke.
Did Sherry Franke's attorney have anything to say about that in court? Because, there are some allegations here being made by Ruby Franke's sisters that Kevin is partially responsible for all of this.
I agree.
Yes. Sherry Franke, no, they did not comment about that at all. And just for a timeline too, we gathered a better timeline. Randy Kester, Kevin's attorney, said today that Kevin and Ruby separated 14 months ago. So aware of kind of when they were no longer living together.
The last time that Ruby Franke was in court for this, and it was a virtual appearance at that time too, since she's being held in jail so many hours away, she claimed that one of her children had sexually assaulted, molested other siblings and then other children in the neighborhood. And she had this tearful reaction from what we read in the Daily Mail. Was there any discussion about that claim today?
That was not discussed in court at all. In fact, the judge asked that discussion only be on scheduling and on whether or not to close this case to the public. I did ask Kevin Franke's attorney about what you just mentioned, and he said basically no comment and that he does not believe those details should be disclosed to the public.
So he didn't deny that it happened, but it's just saying he won't address it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So where do we go from here, since this was both about scheduling and about the potential for closing this hearing to the public?
The next steps, there will be a pretrial. They set a pretrial date regarding the child welfare case for, I believe it is October 17th. And the judge asked that both parents be there in attendance in person. So there was discussion of transporting Ruby Franke to Provo from where she's at now, which would be about a 5-hour drive. Mm-hmm. So that was set. There was also a mediation date set beforehand before that pretrial for this case.
So Kevin Franke showing up and he's saying, I want my children back.
Yes. He did not speak any words in court today, neither did Ruby Franke, but his attorney did say that is what they're working on.
Since the last time you and I...
You didn't want to be... Let me correct myself. You allegedly weren't a dad for the last 14 months. And you had no idea what was going on with your kids. And now we're supposed to trust that you will put those kids first and be what is in their best interest. We're supposed to trust that now, when you don't know what's going on with them for the last 14 months. I don't know. And I guess I will say, go ahead and talk about my bias here too, of like, I also have a bias against what I would consider absent fathers, or just fathers, in my opinion, who just don't take care of their children how they should. I have a very active father in my life. I and my father are very close. I have a half sister who my father went to the ends of the earth for in every way possible. So I just don't have much respect for a man who makes an excuse on why he's not taking care of his children or doesn't know what's going on with his children. Because I grew up with a man who would never let that be an excuse. So I have feelings about that. So maybe that's fair maybe that's also why I'm a little like, I don't know if Kevin deserves these children. But I don't know. I guess I wanted to get that bias out there because I definitely have it. I definitely have it.
Spoke. Has there been any other information you've learned about the family or about this case? Or have you talked to anybody who, has told you, yes, we were indeed concerned? Because we've heard that so many times that people are saying anonymously that they were concerned. There was this social media campaign, the Cancel Utah vlogger thing, to really bring attention to the way the children were being treated. Have you learned any more about that?
Before she gives her answer, can we stop calling actual problematic behavior cancel culture? Can we stop doing that? Can we stop acting like us calling you out for actual, like, problematic, and in this case, allegedly criminal behavior is cancel culture? Because it's not. Fun fact. That's at least how I feel. At least how I feel.
I would say we're hearing two different things. I was in Ivans, which is where Jody Hildebrandt's house is, and the neighbors down there seemed either older or from out of state, so they weren't as aware of the YouTube channel and what has been seen on that YouTube channel. Their perspective was more, this is a quiet neighborhood. We didn't know Jody Hildebrandt that well. We honestly didn't even know that there was many children in this neighborhood. It's a very widespread out private neighborhood in
Not the no
southern
trespassing
Utah.
signs.
So it just doesn't.
Y'all see
You
that?
wouldn't assume there'd be a lot of children there.
Y'all see that?
But we are hearing perspective from a different perspective from people that kind of grew up watching the YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, and a lot of them from who we've talked to have mentioned how there were things that were concerning. They didn't know how concerning. Just seeing one video at a time, but there were questionable things that they look back at and say, should we have spoken up? Then, it's hard if you're consuming one video on YouTube, versus everything they've done, all their videos, if that makes sense. So.
Well, Amanda, it sounds like this is something that is not going to go away, at least the interest in this case, anytime soon. And I think everybody just wants what's best for the children. Any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, a lot of research I've done since we last talked. I've heard from several victims of Jody Hildebrandt, the business partner of Ruby Franke. And a lot of these victims are coming forward and sharing their stories. A lot of it is just their story. But one thing we are hearing over and over again is that, I'm reading saying that we've been interviewing a lot of former clients of Jody Hildebrandt, and one thing we're hearing over and over again from these former clients is that Hildebrandt had a form of
One critique Law and Crime. She clearly wanted to correct herself and not use the word victims. Why did y'all not cut it out? Why did y'all not just slice out what she said and then put this in correctly? Like, why'd y'all do her like that? She seems like such a nice woman. Yeah, but she clearly wanted to not call them victims, and y'all should have just cut that out.
Of therapy where she would want the relationship. She did a lot of marriage counseling to die first. That is something she taught a lot. And another thing a lot of these former clients are talking about is how Hildebrandt would talk to people about, would sometimes make people believe they deserved what was happening to them. So again, these are all from their perspective, but that is something we're hearing a lot about, which seems to be a reoccurring theme, especially with the Daily Mail article you mentioned. This theme of having people believe that they deserve what has happened. So.
And y'all want to try to tell me she wasn't doing that to those children? Ruby, you allowed somebody with that thinking around your children. And that is one thing. I did listen to the 911 call fully. And you can hear the little boy say, "This is my fault. I deserve this. This is my fault." Why are you doing that to that baby? He's 12. Why are you doing that? Like, that's just, it's so scary to think about just how toxic that line of thinking can be, and just how bad the the just how bad, like, that can mess up a kid's life when you do that to them. And I'm assuming the people they're talking to are her adult clients, but imagine what she's saying to those kids. Imagine what she is saying to those people in connections. Just imagine what she's doing to other people's children. It's wild, man. It's just wild. Ugh.
Amanda, there's been a lot said about Jodi Hildebrandt being a counselor and the fact that she's been a licensed counselor for many, many years. And you actually had the opportunity to meet someone who had a really negative interaction with her. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, his name is Adam Steed, and he is coming forward with his story. Basically, many years ago, he was newly married, had one child, another on the way, was a student at Brigham Young University out here.
I have heard
it was
this story.
recommended that he go to Jodi Hildebrandt for marriage counseling with his then wife. And since that counseling, his wife divorced him. He was no longer a student at BYU, and Jodi Hildebrandt's license was suspended for 18 months, according to DOPL, which is the Division of, I think, Publishing and I'd have to look that up, according to DOPL. And her license was suspended for sharing personal information about Adam to both the LDS Church and BYU University.
And that's a big no-no. When you tell a therapist something, it's supposed to stay between the two of you.
Exactly.
Yes. There are, unless it involves, things like murder or child abuse.
Crime or something like that. There are exceptions, but yes, generally speaking. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we hope to have you back when you learn some more information. Have a good rest of your day. That's it for this edition of Law and Crime Sidebar Podcast. You can listen to and download Sidebar on Apple, Spotify, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And of course, you can always watch it on Law and Crime's YouTube channel. Just remember to hit the subscribe button. I'm Anjanette Levy, and we will see you next time.
Bye, y'all. All righty. Alrighty, guys. So I think that's where we're gonna end the stream tonight. I actually feel like I did learn a lot from these, and just kind of doing a little bit of catch up and figuring out what's going on with this case. I definitely think I see the video still on my screen, but I definitely think I want to watch that video about Adam's story, and I think I want to see just what happened to him from his perspective. I feel like a lot of media has talked about his story, and he has not talked about his story. So I think I really want to watch that. I don't know how often we'll be live streaming. Right now, I think we're going to try to keep it at like once a week, something a little more reasonable. But so I guess I'll kind of figure out when is going to be a good time for me to cover that, or I might just watch that in my personal time, and maybe we'll do something a little more fun on the live stream next week, and we'll go from there and we'll figure it out. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your night. This case is so sad. This case is so upsetting. I have a special I have a special place in my heart that I reserve for the hatred of people who do messed up things to children. And I just can't stand it because there's just no reason for it. Children are so innocent. Children are even when they're annoying, even when they get on your nerves, even when they're acting up, like there's always a better way to deal with your child because they don't know any better. And to abuse your kid is so unacceptable. Full stop. Full stop. I don't care how old your kid is. If your kid is 30 and you're abusing them, full stop. Not okay. I just hate all of it. So this, I guess, is a little bit of a sad first stream, but we had our fun, lighthearted moment with our technical difficulties. And I guess we'll, see how those go as we continue. Because who knows? For all I know, this could be a complete waste of time. Y'all couldn't hear me, and I just spent the last hour, 41 minutes, and 18 seconds on this live stream to dead silence. So, guess we'll see how that all goes. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys if you're rewatching this. Be sure to subscribe to me and Cam, and subscribe to the Criminalish Podcast. We are going to be bringing a lot of content for you guys. We have really honed in on what we want to do and the stories we want to tell. So I hope you guys will come along for the ride and support us along the way, because me and Cam love true crime. We love talking about it, and we try to come at it from a perspective that is compassionate, that is understanding, and that gives a voice to victims instead of just feeding into the crimes of the perpetrator. So I hope you guys enjoy our podcast. I hope you guys subscribe, and I hope you guys support us in any way that you feel. So you guys have a good night. You enjoy the rest of your night. Be safe. Go hug somebody you love. If you have a kid in your life, go tell them you love them. They deserve it. And we will see you guys in our next stream. And you guys will hear from us on our podcast episode coming out on Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we'll see y'all later. Bye, guys.